When it comes to the Manson family, most of the stories the public retell over and over again are the ones told to us by the news media or the district attorney's book. But this place, it's different because we get into the stories that the Manson family was telling to each other. If this is your first time here, welcome. This is the back porch, and these are the back porch tapes. And today we'll be headed down one of those rabbit holes. One of those Manson family rabbit holes. Yeah, this is a story about Manson's witches. Sandra Good in particular. This is her story, and it's not told by me. It's told by her, as she told it to Charlie Manson. So let's get started with this. And welcome again to the back porch, the creepiest place in my neighborhood. So our story starts off today with the letter Sandra Good wrote to Charlie Manson. And as the letter goes along, we will share photos she also once shared with Charlie. And speaking of rabbit holes, that's so appropriate here, because when it comes to Sandra Good and her Atwa, besides tree hugging, it seemed that rabbits are what she liked best. Dear Charlie, it's harder to write when I haven't written in a long time. My thoughts get clogged or I forget things that at the time seemed important. It's hot now and sticky. Fireflies are flickering, and the warden had flower beds dug all over the place and seedlings put in. The ground was not fertilized and the flowers are not hardy, and don't captivate me like the ones I grew at Terminal Island, but they're nice. I never have done good on houseplants. Mine all die on me. I feel bad. I don't know if I overwater them or I'm giving them bad vibes. I don't really give them any attention, like looking at them or talking to them. And I'm frequently angry because people around me are so insensitive and have little sense of consideration, if any. Things that might not mean much to some people are real big to me, like women who let their doors slam instead of holding the door and placing it in the latch, and women who play their radios loud with their doors open. At times, I wish that all such people did not exist, and I hate their ways. I'll get more into that later. This is a beautiful place to do time, but somewhere I got near phobia for noise. Mostly loud music. The warden has ordered that music be piped in the dining room so often when I eat, rock music blares from the ceiling along with advertising and news, and the women here seldom speak. They shout. So the dining room is a much less relaxing place or civilized place to be than a barnyard would be at feeding time. I told the lieutenant that the music and the confusion in there made me feel like smashing heads. I asked the food guy, who was standing with him, why they tolerated it, and he said, they like it. I angrily said, who's they? And that I knew a lot of people who hated it. They agreed. It was insane, but it's what the warden wants, and so be it. It's clear he wants what the loudest fear push wants. It seems he is almost desperate for their approval, and Red hasn't gotten her peat moss yet to mix with the soil she's digging herself with a trowel. It took her a long time to get. I asked the warden if landscaping could go in her yard and rototill her a plot for her flower seeds. I'll have to go see him sometime this week. I also want to get off this card I carry. Officers have lost it 4 times in the past 3 weeks. So that tells me it's time to be taken off it. I carry it because of notoriety. Whenever I go somewhere, I have to get the card from the officer where I'm at, and they call me to where I'm going, and I give up the card, and when I leave that place, same trip occurs. It's nuisance for me, the police, and it's sort of senseless because I'm least likely to leave it or get in trouble, and it makes me mad that the best are treated the worst and vice versa. Red being in there so long gets to me. It's so wrong, but maybe it's for the good on other levels as far as her soul. But the scapegoat trip, I don't like, while garbage is catered to and allowed to sink deeper and the need for order and authority is not seen. And the authority is very misdirected. The trip of children as payment for past debt is more clear to me than ever before. I have to tell you about this dance troupe that came here last Sunday and Saturday. I remember what you said about Gregory, and I was hesitant to check this out. But I love the ballet and modern dance. I'm going to sleep now. The next day, I woke up this morning having a dream that I was downtown in a city, I think San Diego, and I was walking with my arms around this tall French guy I used to know. He was a real cold person in life. But in the dream, I loved this person and wanted to hug him. We got in the middle of the road away from dodging crowds of people on the sidewalk, and suddenly there was no traffic or people. But it was still a city street, and I wanted to hug this person so much I put both my arms around him, but I woke up by slamming door and was mad. I drifted back to sleep, still with the good feeling of wanting to hug this person, and the object of my love turned into a bird that I was caring for. Then the dream shifted to a cavern with moss and dark trees and vines. Then there were some people there. This one tree had a long branch and it hung out, and I wanted to sit on it and swing, but I didn't want to set a bad example for others who might swing on the branch and break it. I was pretty sure this branch would hold me. It was long, low, and pliable, so I sat on it like a swing, and it was pretty magic. Then another door slammed and woke me up. But still, I still had the good feeling, and I didn't want to lose it. So I went back to sleep and faded into another dream until the officer woke me up. The other night I had a nightmare, and I think I yelled out loud, "Help!" and I woke myself up. I'm not sure if I actually yelled or not. I can't remember the dream, and I can't put in words what I remember, but I was picking up some kind of communication on a level not known to humans. It was like being able to hear high radio frequency or translate some kind of vibration into meaning, and the meaning was terrifying. The fact that I turned into this knowledge or level of communication scared me. Then this creature came into the room where I was with 2 or 3 other people. The creature carried a huge case and pulled out a giant knife. I ran out of the room, leaving the others, and yelled, "Help!" That's when I woke up. I dream so many different kinds of dreams. I wish I could sleep more than I do. It's like I need to dream. The officer lost my card, so when I was ready to go to lunch, the lieutenant said I couldn't come to the dining room until I got a new card made. I was mad. I told my case manager that it was ultra stupid and that I needed to eat. They sent me to the ad building to get a temporary card, a piece of paper with my name on it, and I took it to the dining room with me. The female, it couldn't see how stupid it was. A lot of officers see how dumb the whole card is. I asked the captain if I could be taken off it, and he said my team, Don Williams, had recommended that I be on it for another 6 months. Captain says it's because I've had publicity. I found Don Williams, and he talked to me as he was running from me as usual, and said he couldn't take a chance of me escaping, and he needed to keep close tabs on me. I told him that it was his fear and insecurity of job loss and his inability to face me and his lack of good judgment that allowed his fears to run him and make dumb decisions to keep me on this card, which is a nuisance to me and to the officers. I'm going to see the warden tomorrow. Don Williams said, "I'll be on the card forever." Okay, back to the dance trip. The guy who heads the dance troupe is the brother of a woman in here, and she's been trying to get them to come here for a year. In 1976, the bicentennial of the U.S., the dance troupe toured Russia, then Australia, and some other countries. And they've done danced on TV and around the U.S., so my interest was up. Saturday night, they had a workshop. I went, and a white girl with a strong British accent from South Africa was leading a group of inmates in the middle of the floor in some yoga type exercises, the kind I do naturally. When she had the jukebox turned on and started right away showing some dance steps, I went along, and then I got inhibited as the girls moved across the floor behind her. The staff doctor, female, was in the group and asserted inmates, but most were too bashful to get out and learn. They just sat around in the center of the floor and watched and laughed. Within 45 minutes, a whole dance routine was worked out, and it ended in kind of a primitive circle dance and someone beating a drum. It turned out that the circle dance was derived from an Australian Aborigines fertility dance. I wanted to learn the steps, but I feared making mistakes and not doing it right. It happened whenever I've taken modern dance class, I get blocked and can't learn a simple step and feel like an MR. Then there was another white girl, part of the dance troupe, in the group of inmates, kind of egging girls on, and she took me by the hand and said, "Come on." I said no. I had my tights and shorts and looked eager, but I had already flubbed up and didn't want to show myself bad. As I was leaving, a black fella, very feminine, with very kind eyes, asked if I was going to be at the next performance the next day. I was kind of cold and said yes. The dude, I had read, had graduated from the same girls' school in New York that my sister had gone to for a year before she died on pills and had to come home under guard on the airplane. It was then one of the most elite, expensive girl colleges in the U.S. Now it's co-ed. Anyway, I guess that's where Greg Jacobson got his ballet training and education. The next morning, I went to breakfast and got in line just as the women from the dance troupe were getting in line. So we were together. I asked if any of them went to Sarah Lawrence, the college, and one said she had gone to Bennington, another elite Eastern Women's College, and I asked what the young people were thinking about. And I told them how my sister was sort of a nut and a radical ahead of her time, and they said that's how Sarah Lawrence used to be in the 60s. And they started tripping on when the first civil rights sit-ins were, but how the kids in the college now are concerned with jobs. I ran down to them about chemical waste dumps, air and water, nuclear power, and how if the people didn't put their attention on the earth and will to fixing it, that there wouldn't be any. I told them that we had all been raised to be nice, with nice manners, and to work within the system, and we seen that nice didn't work, and we finally picked up guns and knives and told them to stop killing us. The 5 girls listening were all ears and eyes. I told them that being in prison was worth it, because when you wake up to what's happening and you care and you do all that you can for what you believe, then you feel right. Then I came to the fried egg pan and our conversation stopped. Later, I went up to the rec room to return my J.K. Tolkien Fellowship of the Ring book, and I ran into the girls who were going into the exercise room to limber up for their performance. I asked if I could watch. They said sure, and they told me that they were very moved by what I said in the dinner room, and they were glad they could talk to me. The one with the British accent was from South Africa. She said she was a refugee from there. The other girls, except for the one from South Africa, were beautiful. White skin, blue eyes, and moved like angels. 2 real pretty ones stayed sort of aloof, and the South African one and another talked to me. They said they wanted me to take up residency in West Virginia, and come and teach dance and get a whole performance with inmates and then go out into the community and perform. And if the warden wouldn't go for it, then maybe performance could be held in the prison and outside people could come in. They did exercises, and I did a few with them, and we talked some more. I told them that Lynette Fromm was a good dancer, but she couldn't come out. They said, "Who?" I said, "You may have heard of her by the name of Squeaky." And that's when I guess they knew who I was. Maybe they knew before, I don't know. I told them that you, Charles Manson, were a fantastic dancer, and how you and others sometimes would dance when the police came to the ranch to harass us, and how they would split. They cracked up, and the two of them started talking about how you looked like one of those enlightened people that they could tell by your eyes, like a Zen monk or something. I told them how the earth was a woman to you, and how you didn't look for approval and attention from a woman. And other stuff that they could sort of relate to. Then two homosexual white guys came in, and then they said they had to go downstairs and begin rehearsing. I followed them and went backstage, and the South African white girl and I talked a bit, and I asked her a little about there. And she said people were leaving because they were scared, and something about how her parents disowned her 10 years ago in South Africa, and she went to England, etc. The homosexuals were kind of getting antsy because I was sort of in the way of the rehearsal. So I went out front and watched them rehearse. The girl explained to me some of the dances they were going to do. An hour later, the show began. The black guy, Greg, a delicate homosexual, maybe bi, introduced the dancers, and each danced and explained it. He was very articulate, intelligent, and soft, but not wishy-washy or weak, almost humble manner. Yet he made up the dances, costumes, choreography, and he chose the music. So the girls were dancing, his dance, 5 girls, 2 white guys, and him. The first was like a country thing. Greg wore a white full-sleeve shirt, overalls, and the dudes wore overalls, no shirt, and the girls wore long skirts. It was a combination of modern dances, ballet, but the idea was like a hoedown in Arkansas in the 1800s. Then Greg introduced another dance, equinox, and rapped about the number 5 being in the middle of a spectrum of divine on one end and animal desires on the other, etc. The girls start. One has a gimp leg, and she's hobbling around, and the others form a circle around her and heal the leg. This dance was the Australian fertility dance, and the gimp leg was supposed to symbolize a limp dick. Anyway, she gets fixed, and the dance turns into money dance from the 1950s, up to disco. Greg explained beforehand that it was like showing where dance had gone into lust, cruelty, etc. All the styles of Hollywood dance and popular fads were like suggested in the girls' movements. It was a trip. Then there was an intermission, and Greg came out and introduced a dance he said took him 3 years to put together. The Passion According to Mary. And he wrote it for his mother because he said he never had money to get her birthday presents or Christmas presents, etc., etc. So he made this dance for her. His idea was complex. Basically a pregnant Mary foreseeing all that would happen to her son. Greg played the Christ while she's having the visions. The other women backstage are enacting her visions. He shows at some point that Mary goes through some jealousy changes because her son no longer belongs to her. He belongs to all mankind. And she's jealous of the other women who have his attention. Somewhere he has a Cain and Abel trip going on. The white homosexual dancer dude is Cain, and he, Greg, is Abel, and Cain kills him. But the mother forgives him for it, and then it merges into the crucifixion. The women are all dressed as nuns, Mary also, but she wears a white headdress. The others wear black. She comes out all pregnant, doing this far-out pregnant dance, which was beautiful. Then Elizabeth, her pregnant cousin comes out and they dance around and listen to each other's stomachs, etc. Then the other woman come out and they all dance around. The dance was done to Bach's The Passion according to St. Matthew, which is heavily religious music. A woman and a choir singing. Mary was the whitest girl and looked like an angel. And when she took her black son, Christ, in her arms and rocked him, and when he carried her son on his back in a dance way and when she went through her changes as he went through dying on the cross. I went through 60,000 changes. The dude was beautiful, but he didn't look like his mom, and she was beautiful. And as far as the dancing and acting, those people were some of the best I've seen. When the dance was over, I was fucked up. And the audience was standing and cheering. I was in the front row, and I didn't stand. The next and final dance was a love dance, which Greg introduced. And it was him and the 5 girls. At one point, he held her in a classical ballet, lovemaking form, her back arched, his holding her. And in the very end, she and he kissed. The whole thought was then and there sold to any who I thought knew the importance of difference, because it was on an art form. And some of the girls in the audience were telling me that this was the best thing to come to Alderson. And what a shame it was the most of the inmates didn't have minds to appreciate something fine, etc. Heartstones told me afterwards that Greg was similar to the guy she'd met at Berkeley some 16 years ago who she had a baby by. And that was a beautiful dude, etc. It was like his being cultured and graceful makes it okay. I feel if the warden is so pleased with the trip that he may allow. The warden may allow the people to come in next year or sooner to teach. It's far out, because I described some of the girls as being like angels, and that afternoon an inmate came to me and said she heard a phone call come through control for me or Red. And the guy in the control took down a name and a number, and she saw the name. And it was Angel. So what do you think? You think that Manson would sit down and read those long letters by Blue? Or long letters by anybody, actually. I mean, I sent him some long letters too. That was one from Blue. Sometimes it was hard to read. But I hope the point got across that she's pretty well descriptive in there. And the point is, I'm only about halfway through that thing right now. So the point is, if you liked it, come back for more, because I got more of that. And I got more of the Capistrano one too. I got to finish yet with the FBI file I got for her. I got files from Lynette where she describes how she got kicked out of her house, you know, when her dad threw her out. Not quite the full story. We got the full story on that. We got a lot. I keep building layers to this stuff, so you got to keep watching it. And we've come to page number, I believe, 8 to that thing. And Blue sounded like she really wanted to be a dancer. That's probably what she liked about Manson. Manson sounded like he taught her things. Sounds like she's young right here. That sounds like a young kid, like waking up to the world almost. And by that point, she's in prison. She's in Anderson, how do you say that shit? Alderson, West Virginia. Yeah, I keep wanting to say Andersonville. That's a much, much harsher place. People, she had been born way before that, and a dude before she'd been there. Anyway, so we've come to the end of another, and the only reason we've come to an end is because I've been down here reading this thing, which only seems like 20 minutes goes by, but sometimes you gotta reread it like 5 different times, so it looks like a finished product here. Down here, it takes like 27 hours. Not really that long, and I don't really mind. I like getting into and I haven't read this stuff for a while, so it's like you get an inside look on what's going through these people's minds. Now she's in jail, and next time we'll look at page number 9, or maybe we'll look at Capistrano, maybe we'll look at Lynette Fromme, maybe we'll look at something, maybe we'll look at Manson stuff, maybe we'll look at more of his food. Pfft, who knows? It's endless here. It's endless. But she goes on, and we'll be back for more. And thanks for watching. And until next time, peace.